And now, straight out of Boston, Massachusetts, it's time for Entertainment Talk Nation, your number one entertainment talk show, discussing everything from the movies to video games and more. And now, here is your host, Robert Rosado.
And a good Monday morning. Hello, everybody. This is Rob. This is ETN. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I had a great one. Many of you know it was my son's birthday this weekend, and we had a lot of fun at his party. Had some family come up from New York, my parents. It was just a great weekend overall. And what made it even great was we had such a fantastic later half of the week last week with all the Godzilla stuff. That was a lot of fun. The channel has resurged to, in an unexpected way, more than 200 people have joined Entertainment Talk Nation since last week, and we've had a great surge of views, and I want to thank everybody for showing up. If you're new to ETN, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I hope you enjoy your stay. And if you've returned from a long hiatus of my glory days back in 2013, it's great to have you back as the hype train is making its way to next year's eventual release of Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's been great. And we have a lot of fun things going on this week. If you don't know, there's going to be a live stream Friday night at 9 p.m. and it's going to be open forum. We're just going to talk about whatever. It's mainly going to be engaging with you guys and as well as promoting the soon to be released Patreon for the Entertainment Talk Nation channel and the nation as a whole. It's just been great things. Now, before we get started, I want to say we do have a heavy nor'easter winter storm warning in effect here in Massachusetts. And we're supposed to be getting up to 20 inches, maybe more, of snow starting tonight. So what does this mean? Well, I've already looked at some of the comment sections in my videos because we're doing a Godzilla Mailbag today. And I know there's some people asking when the next videos, certain videos are going to be done this week. In particular, I had a couple of people ask in regards to the character profiling videos because I was supposed to do that last week and we got sidetracked with all the Godzilla stuff that happened. So let you know ahead of time, this is probably going to be a backloaded week. Whatever amount of videos I do will probably be on the later half of the week, Thursday, Friday, because tomorrow I am likely not going to be recording any videos. My children will be home from school because the schools will be closed likely. And then, you know, if I have to, I'll probably do most of my recording on Wednesday and then upload Thursday and then Friday afternoon and then Friday night will be the live stream. So today is the extended podcast. This is pretty much my minimum once a week Monday morning podcast where I do a very long minimum an hour podcast discussing some of the happenings. This one, I don't know if it's going to be an hour necessarily. It's only a couple of things that I want to discuss. Number one, because I kind of want to leave some of the more focused and detailed topics to videos. But I do want to talk about Fastlane last night and Jessica Jones season 2, and then never mind. Jessica Jones season 2. Then we're gonna focus on the Godzilla Mailbag, and that's pretty much it. So I can't see that taking an hour unless I blabber along, which I tend to do. Fastlane. So you know, SmackDown pay-per-views are usually not that good. And last night, I don't think last night was a great pay-per-view, but it was a lot better than I expected. A lot of things happened that I enjoyed. But this, you know, looking at SmackDown and then watching Fastlane, makes me really happy that, well, at least there's a rumor that the brand split is coming to an end after WrestleMania. And that's a good thing. The reason that rumor probably is true is because so far as far as scheduling pay-per-view events goes, they seem to be focused on one brand, and that's just WWE superstars, not SmackDown or Raw. So we'll see if that happens, but they need to do that. They really do. It's just, you know, SmackDown, it's weird. SmackDown, in my opinion, should not be that weak compared to Raw. You know, I mean, AJ Styles is a very popular wrestler. He's a champion. You got Shinsuke Nakamura. You know, you got Randy Orton. I mean, you have the New Day. You have the Usos. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that they have such a, you know, that SmackDown, when you compare it to Raw, is just not nearly as good. But anyway, in terms of the pay-per-view, I thought it was okay. I think the biggest highlight for me was when the Bludgeon Brothers came out and kicked the shit out of the Usos in the New Day. That to me was just great. That was like great classic, wrestling back in the day when all these, or especially during the NWO era and WCW, when these wrestlers just come out and just interfere in a match and kick the crap out of the other people. That was just great. And obviously it's setting the tone. I think obviously we're going to get a triple threat tag team championship match at WrestleMania with those three, which would be good. That would be a great match. I would love to see that. Strangely enough, the Bobby Roode and Randy Orton match was boring. Which is a match that should not have been boring. It just, for me personally, it was boring. I don't know what it was. I like Bobby Roode, but I'm not sold on him yet. Like, I don't know. There's something about him that I think he's a skilled wrestler. He's got a great look. I don't know. I just feel like there's something missing there. I don't know what it is. I can't seem to put my finger on it, but there's something missing with him, and it's hard to pinpoint. Because he's got so many tangibles about him that I think could make him a great star, but I don't know what it is. There's just something missing there. And I was very surprised that Randy Orton got the title. I didn't expect that. So I don't know if they're going to be trying to start a new rivalry with him. I don't know where Jinder Mahal stands in all this. Obviously it's probably going to be Mahal and Orton at WrestleMania, and Orton's finally going to beat him, maybe. I hope. I don't know, because Orton's lost him like 3 times already. So that match was particularly weird. It just, it's like on paper, you're like, oh man, that should be great. And it really wasn't that good. It really wasn't. The tag match, as I said, was great, especially when the Bludgeon Brothers came out. Surprisingly, the Charlotte Flair Ruby Riott match was really good. That I actually enjoyed. I thought that was a good, and then of course, Asuka coming out to finally confirm that she's going to be facing Charlotte, which would be the better match. I'm not taking anything away from Alexa Bliss. I think Alexa Bliss is, I'm not a huge fan of her, but I got to give her credit, man. She's come a long way, and she really, really is such a great title holder. But in terms of, spectacle, Asuka versus Charlotte Flair is the match you want to see. That's definitely the match you want to see. So, but I thought the Ruby Riott match was pretty good. I did actually enjoy that. The tag match with the ladies was boring. That was just, and that's just horrible to say, but and especially considering that I like, Naomi, I like, Natalya, I like Becky Lynch. Carmella is just a waste of space, and, a surprise. I was actually expecting Carmella to come out and cash in last night because she's had that Money in the Bank, briefcase for so long, and I would think they'd want to get rid of that before WrestleMania. So I guess if she didn't use it last night, she's likely going to use it at WrestleMania, but she's got to use it at some point. She's just holding on to it for whatever reason. Nakamura and, Rusev match was pretty good. Interesting. It's a very conflicting match for a lot of fans because obviously you heard the crowd. One half, was chanting Nakamura. The other half was chanting Rusev Day. I really do think though that they have to cash in on this Rusev Day thing. Because he's just like insanely popular now. He with that whole Rusev Day, and, it's almost interesting that they put him up against Nakamura. That's such a, not that it's wouldn't be a good match, just the fact that they're both over so well, and then Nakamura's going into WrestleMania, and it's kind of like, I don't know, you don't want to put him in a position where he can have a match before WrestleMania and the person he's facing is more over than he is. Because then that makes you question, well, then why isn't Rusev going after the title? Which I think that's probably, maybe that was a preview of what we're going to see after WrestleMania, where Nakamura and Rusev are going to start having a rivalry. So, and that match was pretty good. The 6-pack match, you know, maybe it was, I thought I liked it. I thought it was shorter. It felt really short. But then when I looked at the clock, it actually went for a lot longer than I thought it did. And maybe it was because it was a good match, and it was a pretty good match. It really was. The way it started was just great, with Cena just AA bombing everybody, and then later on everybody comes in and just beats the hell out of him. Obviously, you know, AJ's gonna win that match because everybody wants to see AJ and Nakamura. And if any of their past matches are any indication of what we're gonna see at WrestleMania, that's gonna be a treat of a match. Definitely a treat of a match. And I think it's a match that you can showcase more of what Nakamura can do. Because one thing I find about Nakamura, and I know he's really popular, and I know there's a lot of people who love him. So far, I like Nakamura. I just don't see where the appeal is. And I think that's because every time I've seen Nakamura wrestle, he's had to face guys a lot bigger than him. And when you face guys a lot bigger than you, that when they clothesline you, you end up flipping in the air. To me, that just makes you look weak. So I definitely want to see this match because Nakamura and AJ Styles are similar in frame. And I think I'll be able to appreciate more of what Nakamura can do against somebody close to his size. Because like I said, every time I've seen him wrestle, he's wrestled guys so much bigger than him. And it just makes everything he does not look very effective. Like his strikes, it's like, I don't know. But again, I'm not saying I like him. I'm not saying he's a bad wrestler. I'm not saying he's a bad striker. And I'm not saying he's bad at all. I've just, I think, been unfortunate enough that I've only seen him mainly against guys a lot bigger than he is. And so I'm looking forward to that Nakamura AJ Styles. So overall, the pay-per-view was okay. It was okay. It was a lot better than I expected. But of course, you know, when it comes to SmackDown, even though they have great wrestlers and great stars on the show, it just seems to lack some sort of star power compared to Raw. But hopefully that all goes away after WrestleMania when they get rid of this whole brand split. But it was okay. Hopefully, hopefully WrestleMania and the next the next shows leading into WrestleMania will give us some stuff to look forward to outside of what we already know. Asuka, Charlotte, Nakamura, Styles, Reigns, Lesnar. I do hope we get that triple tag match between the Bludgeon Brothers, the Usos, and the New Day. I think that'd be great. It looks like that Wyatt Hardy match will take place at WrestleMania, unless it takes place tonight on Raw. I don't know. I still don't seem to know what they're going to do with that match, because Matt Hardy mentioned having it at the Hardy compound, but he didn't mention when. I don't think they'll do something like that at WrestleMania. To be honest, I don't think they'll have a match at the Hardy complex at WrestleMania. I just think that would probably be a turnoff for the 90,000+ people that are going to be there to watch WrestleMania. I don't think they're going to want to look at a Titan screen for one of the matches. But we'll see. Raw's tonight, so we'll find out if that match is tonight. And if it's tonight, that's going to be just a lot of fun. So what did you guys think about the Fastlane? If you're a wrestling fan, let me know in the comments below. All right, so Jessica Jones Season 2 released last Thursday. Unbeknownst to me, I'm so used to these shows coming out Friday that when I found out it came out Thursday, I was pretty surprised. But I didn't actually start watching it until later on into the weekend, Friday night, Saturday night. Then I finished watching it yesterday. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. It got a little weird, or not that it got weird. It felt a little weird towards the end, and there will be spoilers, by the way, guys, just before I get into any details. I like the fact that we learned about Jessica's past. I like the fact that we found out exactly what happened to her, how she got her powers. And I love the fact that towards the end of the season, we got to see Kilgrave again. Obviously not in the flesh and blood, but he's obviously very, very embedded in her, because of the trauma she experienced while being with him, and then the fact that she murdered him. all things that she has to answer for in this season. So that was pretty good. I think one of the things I liked most about the season was Malcolm. He really grew this season. He really came into his own, and he kind of, very much take charge. And we also see that he's still very young and gullible. Obviously because of the fact that Trish used him the way she did, which was just fucked up. And, because she's got obviously a complex with Jessica having her powers, and she feels that Jessica's not utilizing them in a way that she should in terms of helping people. But, that's something we see in a lot of these superhero shows or movies, that being a hero is not as easy as you might think it is. When you have the powers, there's a lot of negative that comes with it that most people who don't have powers, they don't see that. The villain, now the funny thing is, this one didn't really have a villain per se, which also kind of made me like it, because it wasn't your typical build the season up to this major villain and a major showdown at the end of the season. It had none of that. And I kind of like that. That's a nice change, especially considering how they did it. With her mother being the one that has powers too, and her still being alive. And, the impact her mother had on her life while she really didn't know about it, because her mother was kind of in hiding, but watching from the distance and, doing things that she shouldn't have been doing that affected Jessica directly, even though Jessica didn't know anything about it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was really good. I really did. I don't think this season is as good as the first one, because Kilgrave made such an impact in the first one that you miss him in this series until you finally do see him towards the end. But that character had such a presence in season 1. And because he was such a threat, it made the stakes in season 1 a lot higher. This season lacks that, because of the fact that you don't really have a villain where there's high stakes. Because there's really no villain per se in this season. It's mainly, there's something that builds up to be a villain, and then eventually it turns out to be her mother, who's been through hell and back, because her mother's gone through the same experiences, or experiments, I should say, that Jessica did, but to a much worse degree, because she was in bad shape. There was a lot more, let's say, for lack of a better term, liberties that the mad scientist doctor had to take with Jessica's mother than he did with Jessica. So she had some really bad side effects that caused her to be stronger than Jessica. Number one, she was a lot stronger than her, and also just caused her to just go on these blood killing sprees that were uncontrollable. And then she would feel the guilt of doing it later, but that doesn't change anything. Once the damage is done, the damage is done. So from that aspect, I thought it was a great different direction to take a superhero show, when a lot of them fall into the trap of building up to a big baddie every year. So the other thing I thought was interesting was Trish's journey to the Hellcat. And we didn't see the Hellcat fully fledged out this year, but obviously that's what they built towards. That's probably going to be the center of next year's storyline, because when we leave off the show this year, we see that Jessica and Trish are not on good terms. Trish obviously being the one to put down Jessica's mother at the very end, and in such a very shocking way. When her mother got picked off, I swear to God it was the cops, and it wasn't. It turned out to be Trish, and I was very surprised. And then Trish, we see at the end, her powers are starting to come out. Now, I do also like Trish's story arc in this one, because, her life is so interesting. When you have a mother like she does, who's constantly just basically using you for fame and, money and stuff like that. And then you have your friend or your sister or stepsister, in their case, Jessica, who's got these great powers, but she seems to, from Trish's perspective, take them for granted and not utilize them in such a way where she can do better things outside of getting drunk. So Trish goes on this hot pursuit to find the doctor that basically made Jessica and her mother the way they were. And throughout the whole story, they're making you think that she wants to stop this guy and take him down, take him out, only to find out towards the end that the real reason she's looking for him is so that he can experiment on her and give her powers. During all this, she starts messing around with Malcolm, but she does it for her own gain because she knows in the back of her head, because Malcolm has such a thing for her, that he'll do anything. So she kind of indirectly turns Malcolm against Jessica because he starts doing things for Trish that affect Jessica, and it's just a big clusterfuck. Not in a bad way. I thought it was a really good story. I thought it was very different. I thought that, you kind of wish they can go the route of Hellcat that they did in the comics, but, if you're familiar with Hellcat in the comics, the way she goes about getting her powers, she gets help from Beast, who at this point in the comics is actually with the Avengers, not the X-Men. And then that's how that whole thing starts. Well, obviously they can't use Beast in the Marvel show, so they went a different route into her getting her powers. And it looks like next year it's likely going to be Jessica Jones versus the Hellcat for either the whole season or a good portion of the season before they're both forced to team up against somebody else. So that's the direction they're probably going to go next year. And we'll finally get the Hellcat. We got to see a little bit of her powers at the very end of the season, when she goes to tell Jessica that she's sorry, and Jessica's like, oh, the only thing I see when I see you is the killer of my mother. And it's like, oh man, you know what that means. And then she's walking back towards the elevator, and she drops her phone, and like her agility kicks in, and she literally catches her phone with the tip of her foot and then flips it back to her hand. And she's like looking all weird, because up to that point, Trish had no idea. Trish thought she was going to die because she was in the hospital towards the end of the show because of what the experiment that he did on her almost left her dead. And you see her go through all these things in the hospital and all these kind of spasms and her body just, convulsing in such violent ways. But in actuality, it was probably her transformation that was doing that. Her body, getting its new, powers and just making the adjustments. And, that'll be interesting to see next year. I'm kind of looking forward to that. So overall, Jessica Jones, I thought season 2 was really good. I don't think people are going to like it as much as the first one, but that's not because the story's bad, in my opinion. I think it's because, Kilgrave was just such a great villain last year, and this year you don't have that great villain. What you have is a villain who's faulted, who has a major relationship with the main character, Jessica, such as Kilgrave. The only difference is the things that she does is not necessarily intentional, more so than it's a reaction from the experiments that she went through. And so there's definitely areas where you feel sorry for that character and you feel the character might be redeemable. But we'll see. We'll have to wait a whole nother year now. And I'm sure you guys will mention in the comment section how you felt about the show if you've seen it. But that's it. Jessica Jones, I liked it. I thought it was good. And I'm looking forward to next year with the whole Hellcat story arc. So, all right, we're going to jump right into the Godzilla mailbag. And then after that, we're going to end this somewhat short podcast. I mean, we're still going, so we'll probably crack 40 minutes before this is all said and done. All right, so I'm going to my older video, not older videos, excuse me, my most recent video where I mentioned that if you wanted to have questions for the Godzilla mailbag, you can send them here and I'll look at them. So I'm going to be scrolling down this comment section to look for the questions, and then we'll address those, and then we'll call it a day. Okay, so first question comes from Kaiju King. Which monster that isn't Godzilla do you think Toho will do when they start doing Godzilla movies once a year? Well, I think they'll go into the old roster for starters. I mean, you don't want to, there's no need. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So I think we'll definitely see Mothra, Ghidorah. Might even see those three, Mothra, Ghidorah and Rodan right in the outset, because those are the monsters that most audiences on our side of the world are going to be familiar with because of the 2019 movie. So don't be surprised if they do end up doing a Godzilla movie once a year starting in 2021. I think you'll definitely see Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan in the early going, because those will be the freshest monsters on the mind of viewers or moviegoers. Rob, do you think the sequel will take place 5 years in the future? This is from Alan Mullins. 5 years in the future, and what the Earth population will think about these monsters popping up out of nowhere. I don't know if it'll be 5 years into the future. I would have to think some time would have to go by, to allow opportunity for recovery, These monsters stomped on Vegas. They stomped on California, other parts of the world, Japan. So I think definitely you have to have some time go by to allow recovery. So 5 years is fair. They might take the 5 years that we have been waiting for the movie and just go with that and decide, all right, well, it's been 5 years. It's time for the monsters to come back. But I'm not 100% sure, and if they do, I think another interesting question is, if you skip 5 years, do you somehow at some point go back and kind of reflect and maybe get the crowd caught up? Kind of do, as you do the credits, roll back and kind of replay what took place, and then go into a set of photos or scenes during the opening credits that kind of explains what's been happening visually, explaining, not necessarily dialogue, but visually explains what's been happening since the end of the first movie. We've seen stuff like this done in movies before, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for them to do it in this movie, should they decide that they want to tell a story that goes a little bit more into the future. Okay, so next one comes from Jordan Moreno. Do I like the design if it was Ghidorah? And he's referring to the ADI Studio image that was online, that was taken down, that we all discussed last week. I can't answer that. When it comes to CGI design of anything like monsters or animals and stuff like that, you really have to wait until the movie is released and you get to see it in action. Because believe me, like I've said before, I've taken classes when I was in college. I took classes that delved into CGI, and the amount of layering, the amount of rendering that's involved to get something that looks as realistic as some things look on screen is a lot of work and very time consuming. And if that was Ghidorah, I can tell you right now that the amount of work they would have to continue to put into that picture to get it to look like Ghidorah in the end would be a lot of work. So it wouldn't be fair for me to judge it right now as I see it, because that design right there is far from anywhere close. Like the actual shape, because I mentioned this in another video, the actual design in terms of the look, the outlining, that might be final. But in terms of texture, coloring, movement, things like that, that stuff's nowhere near finalized if you look into that picture. So until I see it complete, fully motioned and scaled and textured and fully rendered, it wouldn't be fair for me to judge what I see, because there could be a lot of additions to that image that, while the premise of it might look the same in terms of shape, size, the movement plays a big role as to whether or not something looks believable. The coloration, how it looks in your backdrop of your movie. So there's just too many things that are involved for me to just come out straight and say I don't like it. I don't know. I know a lot of people are doing that, but for me, it's just not fair to do that right now, knowing what I know about CGI. Okay, Shemp DZ. His question is, when do you think you'll have another Godzilla 2 character bio video, specifically on Charles Dance? I'm going to say Thursday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday, maybe even Friday. As I said at the beginning of this cast, there's going to be bad weather up here tonight, going into tomorrow. I don't suspect I'll have any time to do videos tomorrow because of the fact that my children will be home. I'm surprised I haven't even heard yet whether or not they're going to close schools, but I'm going to guess by Thursday or Friday I'll have it up, possibly Wednesday. I'm going to actually try and record as many videos today as I can between morning and nighttime, but there are a lot of other videos I had planned that I want to do as well. So hopefully I'll have it up Wednesday, but you will get it this week. And actually I was going to do Charles Dance, so you're in luck. Okay, next question is from Figure Mania Show, and he asks, if the Monsterverse continues after Destroy All Monsters, do you think we will see alien beings start showing up? Well, we don't have a Destroy All Monsters right now, so I'm gonna restate your question. If Monsterverse continues after King Kong versus Godzilla, do you think we'll see alien beings starting to show up? No, I don't think so. You know, it's like, you know, that's been a big question too surrounding Ghidorah in this movie, because we all know that Ghidorah in the Toho version is a space monster. But I think a lot of people know that that's probably not going to be the case in this movie. So if they're not willing to go out of space for King Ghidorah, I can't see any other reason why they would. You know what I mean? Like, Ghidorah would be your best case for trying to make outer space monsters invading Earth a thing. And if they're not going to do it with him, that tells me they don't have a whole lot of confidence in doing it at all. So I'm going to say no to that question. I don't suspect we'll get any alien activity in this Monsterverse. I also don't think we're going to get any information or any confirmation on anything related to Godzilla and the Monsterverse beyond Godzilla versus King Kong, because I really do think Godzilla versus King Kong and Godzilla King of the Monsters, how successful they are in the box office will determine whether or not we see more movies. And even then, we still may not see them. It could be so that they're satisfied with what they provided and they just move on. Now, there is a chance that they could still do crossovers with Pacific Rim. That's something I was going to discuss in another video, but to let you know, there was an article back in October where the team of room writers that was put together by Legendary for this monster universe did include one of the writers from Pacific Rim, and I have this all written down for a video I'm doing regarding that. But basically, in a nutshell, some members from the production team of Pacific Rim have flirted with the idea of connecting to the Monsterverse, because they said they already have plans for a third movie for Pacific Rim if Pacific Rim Uprising does well. And not only do they have plans for a third movie, they've also developed a universe that is a Pacific Rim universe, very much like Star Wars in terms of offshoots and spin-offs and other stories within the Pacific Rim universe. So they apparently have created a lot of content. They've apparently created a lot of content for not only the Monsterverse, but also Pacific Rim. And it looks like they've probably even written content where the two worlds collide. Whether or not we see it on screen remains to be seen. All right, this next question comes from Awesome Godzilla. And he kind of has Godzilla and Goji combined as one. Okay, so who do you think is the monster most likely to join the Monsterverse? You mean like after all these movies, if they decide to go another way? Wow, that's a good question. Really, it really depends. Because how do you really top King Kong and Ghidorah? You know what I mean? Like, how would you top that? What other monster can step in and top that kind of clout? And a lot of people will tell you probably Mechagodzilla. But if you've been here for a while and you've seen a lot of my videos from before, I'm not a big advocate for Mechagodzilla in the Monsterverse, because if you're going to make a big robot to fight Godzilla, you're not going to design it in such a way as to look exactly like him. Furthermore, since you have big giant robots already in the Pacific Rim universe, you're really going to confuse the general audience, as they're probably going to sit there and say, why didn't they just build a robot? Why did they build a robot version of Godzilla to fight him? That doesn't make any sense. And I know a lot of people on the kaiju side will make their case as to why it makes sense. Some of them may be very valid. But again, doesn't matter how valid you think it is. It doesn't matter how much it makes sense. This is for the general audience. If the general audience doesn't think it's going to make sense, it's not going to happen. So, but we can get into that debate on another video, on another time, because that's come up quite a bit. And I feel very certain it'll come up again. And I feel even more certain I'll do a video about it where we can all discuss it again. All right. So that's going to do it for this Godzilla's Mailbag. I will let you know in the next few videos this week when the next Godzilla Mailbag will be. So that way you guys can throw out your questions and we can talk some more. We have, again, don't forget Friday night will be a live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will be having an open forum of discussions where we can talk. Another reason I'm doing the live stream is to introduce my Patreon ideas for viewers in terms of, incentives and rewards for people who support the channel. This is something I'm trying to build towards. I've been trying to build towards it since the end of January. For those of you who were here for that, I made my case, and I told you that before I officially launched my Patreon, that I wanted to develop some sort of consistency in my videos so that way you guys can see that I am back full time, and that I would like to go back to doing videos where I'm on camera. But because of how things have changed over the years, my kids have gotten bigger, and as kids get bigger, your living space gets smaller. Me and my family plan on moving out of our current residence, hopefully by next year. We have a lot of spring cleaning to do in that basement, a lot of old kid toys and stuff like that I want to get rid of before I even think about starting to pack boxes. So because of that, I'm going to be starting a Patreon to garner support for the channel and build goals. And with each goal hit, things will open up that the community can benefit from, as well as myself. My first goal is to get a studio, to be able to rent a studio on a monthly basis so I can have the space necessary to do videos like I used to. I have a digital camera sitting there. I've mentioned this 100 times before. I have a digital camera that I used to use for videos that's been sitting there collecting dust. I'd like to use it again. But we'll discuss that on Friday. But all the other videos that I've been talking about, the character profiling for Godzilla and I have a lot of ideas for other stuff I want to talk about. That'll all be out this week. A Rodan video, character profile video, and things like that. So those will all be out this week. Just that, like I said, it'd probably be back heavy because of the weather that's coming in. So just stay tuned, guys. For those of you, once again, who are new, thank you for joining Entertainment Talk Nation. I appreciate you coming here and subscribing. And out to everybody, thank you very much for supporting the channel in the early going. It was great to see such a resurgence of energy back into the channel last week. Once again, like I said, I think we gotten a little over 200 subscribers, dating back to last Thursday. And, it's just been great. It's been great to see that the fever pitch is there again, and we're going to keep it going. So, all right, guys, that's it for this podcast, this Monday morning podcast. This is Rob signing off for ETN, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to Entertainment Talk Nation. Don't forget to rate and follow and visit us on YouTube at ETN, where you can subscribe to the channel for daily content.